So if you now click onto the next PowerPoint slide, you'll see another picture that really does describe what and how a periodization should look like. So you are going to be asked later on in a video and on the PowerPoint to design your own year program. So again, your year program could look something similar to this in an Excel spreadsheet. So you can see a macro cycle, 52 weeks of a year. So therefore, pretty much what am I going to focus on for this 1 year? Now, for an Olympic athlete, that might be I just want to focus entirely on strength for a year. Quite often that's never happens because, of course, there are multiple components of fitness required for each sport. But maybe you want to focus on certain aspects for just one single year, 52 weeks. Then mesocycles are normally kind of months, and this is how I always remembered it: kind of year, months, and weeks. So you can see here 12 weeks would normally go into a mesocycle, so around 3 months. And again, this is there because evidence has shown us for you to increase strength, so really building pure actin and myosin myofilaments and proteins within inside your muscles is going to take at least 12 weeks. So any shorter than that, then really we're not spending the adequate amount of time developing that component of fitness. Normally, each one of these mesocycles does focus on one single component of fitness. However, in the literature now, it is of course more popular to be able to combine your components of fitness. However, making sure that the components of fitness you're working on do not negatively affect one another. So for instance, you wouldn't necessarily within one mesocycle put muscular endurance and then power, because muscular endurance is looking at the type 1 muscle fibers, so the endurance type muscle fibers, while power is working on the more fast twitch. So if you spend too long in one than the other, then you're not going to get the morphing and the adaptation that you probably require. So you need to pick your components of fitness very, very carefully, okay, and pick ones that complement one another. So, for instance, within one mesocycle, speed, strength, and power could go together because they are all complementary. Then, of course, as you can see here, a microcycle is normally your day, your 1 week period, so Monday through to Sunday. And again, they are dedicated to your mesocycle. And then, of course, we have these training sessions. And so these are your individual training sessions for you to do. So you can see even from here, a very brief overview of a functional training program. You can see here stability would be a main area to work on. So I can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions going on there over a period of 3 weeks, which is of course then making my mesocycle or adding up to my mesocycle. So you can see here, this is a kind of a pictorial way of being able to highlight what your planning would be. You do need to make sure, though, as you can see, 3 weeks or 8 sessions over 12 weeks is not enough. So you need to make it a little bit more complicated than that and a little bit more detailed than this. So, but this is a good starting point to get your head around the different phases of periodization. What's really important as well with this one is also intensity. Please notice that, of course, as the volume increases, so that is the amount of, say, for instance, reps that you do, the intensity will be at the opposite end of the spectrum. So something that is very high volume, something like a marathon run, where you're running for 42 kilometers, is a very high volume but low intensity exercise. So what we're talking about there is actually the run. If you were to run a marathon, if you were to take, well, what's my maximum running speed? The speed you would run a marathon in would be nowhere near your maximum running speed, because you can't sustain that intensity over the volume of 42 kilometers. So knowing the relationship between volume and intensity is very important when planning your training. So again, high volume stuff could be done in the pre-season or the preparation general phase. And then as you develop through your specific phase, maybe the intensity is something that is going to overtake and lead towards the peaking of whatever you need. And you can see here is also an example here. So if I was from a kind of, I suppose, a strength strength perspective leading into power, you can see that we would naturally start more with hypertrophy, trying to build muscle, trying to make muscles as big as possible by simply engaging all three types of muscle fibers. So we would do lots of high volume, high repetition, normally 10s, 12s type number. And then, of course, we would move as we go through our phase into strength training. This would mean that, of course, naturally we're going to bring down the 12 reps, which would be here, to maybe kind of our 8 reps or 6 reps maybe. But of course, the intensity would be increasing. And then again, we're leading into things like power. So again, more decrease in terms of the reps and sets. Maybe we're doing only 2 or 4 reps, okay, but the intensity is a lot higher in terms of our 85-90%, our 1 rep max. And again, you do then multiple sets of that. And then, of course, our peaking, whatever that would be. So you can see how the volume and intensity do go hand in hand, and try not to expect your athletes in your program or design of your program to do too much, because remember, we don't want to overtrain them, which you should now be very familiar with. Okay, so hopefully that covers that area. Okay. Last thing that we want to just cover before I move into another presentation more to do with periodization and what it looks like and examples, is the differences between UK and US periodizations. It's pretty much just, I must admit, I do alternate between both. I'm used to, for instance, saying the pre-season phase, when technically, really, if we were using the European terminology, this would be the preparation phase. Please don't worry at all about using a mixture, and we tend to understand what you're talking about. But please just note that there is a difference in terms of the terminology used. So therefore, when you're reading a book, or maybe you're reading a website, they may use the word in season. So therefore, they're referring to competition phase that we would say in the UK or European terminology. Okay. This graph is also very good at also helping you in terms of your volume and your intensity, and also then including the skill training. Now, you don't need to focus too much on skill training, because we're coming from more of a strength and conditioning perspective. We're providing them with the physical requirements or attributes to be able to perform their skill or their sport. Normally the skill training would come from those qualified coaches, like if it was in a football case, the strength and conditioning coach or the sports scientist would be concerned with the gym based and of course the running based areas, while the skill training of kicking a football or shooting drills would certainly be very much the focus of the coach. Now, as if any of you want to have a career in this area, you have to work closely with coaches to be able to maybe combine them. So, some good training drills that would be able to get the players to do kind of masked running while also performing a shooting drill would also certainly make the training less boring and more interactive for those players. So don't worry too much in your periodization about skill training when I ask you to provide me a 1-year program, but I do want you to understand the difference between volume and intensity. Okay, and the next video that I'm going to do for you will really help give you some examples of what I expect to see. So please click onto the next video.